Good morning and welcome to PAVE Europe's 30th virtual panel, Driving the Future, Skills and Jobs in the Age of Autonomous Vehicles. My name is Nicola Hare, Project and Engagement Manager at Partners for Automated Vehicle Education Europe, a broad coalition whose goal is to bring the conversation about automated vehicles to the public so that everyone can play a role in shaping our future. I am very excited to be moderating today's discussion with a very amazing panel. As autonomous mobility advances, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment, both for the technology and for people, from engineering and data science to policy and city planning. The rise of AVs will no doubt transform the global workforce. The question is, though, how can we ensure that this transformation is inclusive and future ready? Today's conversation is in collaboration with the CCAM-ERAS project, which is a Horizon Europe project that explores how the transition to cooperated, connected, and automated mobility, otherwise known as CCAM, can foster innovation and inclusive employment. The conversation also draws inspiration from PAVE Europe's European Network of Women in AVs, which promotes visibility, collaboration, and gender balance in the mobility ecosystem. We'll be exploring the skills that define the future of AVs and the social responsibility, I suppose, that we share to ensure that those opportunities are open to all. We welcome everyone to share their questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen throughout the session. We'll save time towards the end to address these with our panelists. Let's begin by introducing our panelists. I'm joined today by 4 experts who bring very diverse perspectives from industry, research, policy, and operations. Nana May Feldhaus, COO at Holo, Jacqueline Erhat, Head of ITS Vienna, Sabrina Steiner, Senior Vice President, Strategy, Autonomous Driving at Volkswagen, and Madalena Suter, Head of European and Global Economic Social Policy at Cambridge Econometrics. If I could just invite all of you to offer a short introduction to yourself and share how your work connects to this changing landscape of skills and employment in autonomous mobility. If I could start with you, Jacqueline.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for the invitation. Well, in the ITS Vienna region, we're working on the full mobility system. So we are preparing for emerging technologies and also for this transition from traditional focusing on public transport and also included in the whole mobility systems with cars on the street. And more and more we investigate how autonomous driving might also influence our field of expertise. On the one hand, since we need to adapt to this very fast environment, which CCAM brings with it. And on the other hand, we must consider and rethink a little bit about how the ecosystem of mobility looks like in the future. So we started preparing for this next generation of the mobility systems, especially in metropolitan areas, but also quite focused in the city of Vienna.
Thank you. Madalena?
Good morning, all. I work at the Cambridge Econometrics in the Belgium office, and we participate in this CCAM-ERAS Horizon Europe project, leading the employment forecast relating to the AV transition. I'm an economist by training, and I mainly work on employment and related topics, inequality and poverty, and sector-level analysis. But Cambridge Econometrics in general is an economic consultancy who does research for public policy, and we are doing quite a lot of work in this area of employment forecast or skills anticipation, not only related to the AV transition, which is something new for us, but quite a bit related to the green and the digital transition. So we've been doing quite a bit of work for CEDEFOP and working on labor shortages for European Labour Authority. So we are looking at all kinds of transitions. So I'm glad to be part of this panel. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Madalena. Sabrina?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Great to be here and represent Volkswagen and also Moja, our level 4 robotaxi service. We are a tech company, and at the same time driving the transformation. We're also like a ride pooling pioneer in that business, and we believe in the transformation of complex urban systems to make the cities more safe and livable. And in that, we think autonomous driving is key to deliver that new mobility. Great to be here and to discuss on the changes required for that.
Thank you, Sabrina. And Nana.
Yes, also great to be here. So Nana Filshaus, I'm CEO of Holo, and we are an implementer and operator of autonomous technologies and have been so since 2016, once we were founded in Denmark. And I guess one of the things we are seeing is a big paradigm change in what kind of skills is needed. And I hope we can discuss more today. It's a super exciting topic to dive into for sure.
Thank you all. And I suppose we can just get straight into it. As automation expands, new skills are emerging, as you've all said, from, I don't know, AI, engineering, data, logistics, user experience design. The World Economic Forum had a Future of Jobs report earlier this year, actually, that presented how the rise of autonomous vehicles and digitization is driving significant transformation in the skills required for the workforce. But I'm curious as to how these shifts are playing out in practice. So my first question to you all is, from your various perspectives, what are the biggest shifts that we're already seeing in the skills landscape as autonomous mobility becomes a reality? I'll start with you, Madalena, if I can.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I mean, we've been seeing in the last decade an increase in the skills of digital skills, and this automated autonomous mobility will actually increase this demand of digital skills, but this time will be on a much more variety of roles that it was before. And this like, for example, we can see already that the introduction of electric vehicles has led to an increase in demand of electronic related skills. These will also be needed for this autonomous mobility, but in addition to this electrical related skills, people will also need to develop their digital skills to be able to operate in this environment. And these two kind of set of skills, electrical and digital, that are required for autonomous vehicles, are at the expense of the mechanical related skills. And the other thing that we will observe is that the demand for ICT specialists will increase even more throughout the supply chain. So it's not anymore located to one specific sector. Now it's throughout the economy, and basically everybody who operates or work in this in these sectors will need to have at least one basic level of digital skills to be able to operate.
Thank you. Nana?
Yeah, I think from the operator or PTO perspective, one of the things we see a lot is this switch or paradigm change that safety is now at the core of the operations. And we've traditionally been in the role where the one behind the steering wheel has safety responsibility. And we now need to shift that into being something that's lying within the operation as a company. So you need procedures, you need skills around that, you need safety engineers. It's a completely different way of operating. So safety becomes much more centered for PTOs and operators, where traditionally, of course, OEMs like Volkswagen, you produce a very well cars that are safe, and then operators operate them, and the safety lies with the one behind the steering wheel. This will change radically once you take out that safety driver. And I think that's an educational journey we're all embarking as large PTOs, but also PTAs, regulators, all of this.
Great. Sabrina?
Yeah, I fully agree to what Nana said. Actually, traditional OEMs like Volkswagen, they are now becoming software companies, right? So we first step is to develop from ICE vehicles to battery electric vehicles. That is a great transition in itself. And this is then followed by higher skills that are required to manage the complexity of the blend of vehicle and software capability. So other soft skills are required, more complexity has to be managed. And that is, from an OEM perspective, quite a transition or transformation. And if I just look into MOIA specifically, I think we also need to develop, or we are developing from a driver-based service in Hamburg now to an autonomous service. And there we need to requalify our drivers into new roles.
Thank you. And Jacqueline?
Since we are public and we were responsible for planning the city, working or analyzing the traffic flow, planning public transport. I mean, for us, we now enter the difficulty that we see the biggest shift in a stakeholder multiverse awareness. I mean, when I see all the other colleagues, I think it makes it clear we are no longer just an isolated system. It's increasingly important for us to consider and navigate the diverse interests of stakeholders. I mean, we see with Volkswagen safe cars, but they need to at least also follow this kind of societal behavior we wish, and also in this environment of a city to behave in a way that it is an included part. And it really ranges from the tech providers, from the OEMs, from regulators, urban planners, public authorities. That's not easy to also take this new kind of skill sets into our daily business. And I think the creativity and strong system level thinking gets more and more important. And this innovative problem solving and a deep understanding of complex and interconnected systems are right now crucial for designing and managing the autonomous mobility ecosystems. And as already mentioned, I think this kind of agility to quickly adapt to a changing environment, these emerging technologies. I mean, we have more and more different engineering colleagues in our department. While we used to be, I think, something different for the last years, we are now changing totally in the skill sets we attract and prepare for this to adapt to these new technologies and solutions.
I really like that. I think it is incredibly interdisciplinary, if you like. Like there's a lot of layers to it. So yeah, that's very. I really like that answer. I guess if we take a very small step back, Madalena, if I could turn to you, I think what lessons. So the CCAM-ERAS project is a 2-year project. What lessons have you learned or have we seen so far from the project specifically that can perhaps help us anticipate workforce changes and prepare more effectively?
Yeah, I think as Sabrina and Nana already mentioned, this change in the shift of skills is what we are seeing in the CCAM-ERAS project is exactly this changing the roles. So the same occupations now requires a different set of skills and blending skills that before were not considered compatible, let's put it this way. So now more engineering roles who need to have knowledge and skills related for data processing and software development, policy makers like Jacqueline was mentioning, who needs to also understand the technology to be able to give the permission and to change the regulation to adapt the infrastructure, but also to allow businesses to adopt this technology. From the perspective of an economist, when we are looking at this transition, we are looking at, okay, what are the kind of the changes they're going to make in the economy. And these sectors are really not big enough to make, let's say, a disturbing change. But the most important is, when are we going to adopt them? How are we going to adopt them? and what is coming. And in the CCAM-ERAS project, we are trying to actually identify these use cases which are the most viable and where we could see the impact in the next few years. And this is what we're trying to measure. What are the employment aspects? What are the skills requirements, so that we can already give some indication to the training providers, but also what are the changes that the workforce needs to be prepared for. Yeah.
Thank you. And Nana, I guess from Holo's experience and having these kind of real world deployments out there, which skills would you say today are perhaps most in demand, whether that be technical or non-technical? What are you seeing?
Yeah. I think there is a right now, and right now, while we are in the middle of implementation, there is a heavy demand for safety operators and trainers of safety operators, because we are still at a place where we haven't achieved full driverless in Europe. So, and to do this, we need a lot of data, we need a lot of kilometers driven, and that means also safety drivers, and they play a crucial role in this. Also, feedback loop to OEMs and stuff like this. Safety drivers is really at the core of that. Of course, that would change in the very near future once we do reach level 4 and take out the safety driver. Then the operational side of things will be from a desk, maybe remote control, monitoring, and so on. But there's also the other aspect, which is monitoring, data engineers, safety engineers. We need those kinds of things, because now it's not safety behind the steering wheel, it's we monitor safety behind the screen via our data. So we see it like that. So right now, there's a very, very clear operational role where we are in the need of safety operators. And for us, that means advanced driving skills. It means somebody that is tech savvy. So a little bit of a mixed profile. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Sabrina, in light of this, how is Volkswagen or MOIA, I guess, preparing its current workforce for this kind of technological and organizational shift as AVs are emerging?
Yeah, actually, I again would like to differentiate between the production business and development business at Volkswagen. There you have to upskill the engineers, people in the plant to work with digital products, to include them into the product, to manufacture, to also run the production systems on cloud. So that is a big shift. Also where you need to blur the lines between a classical engineer and a software engineer. So that is has to come together. That is one piece, and for that, many programs are in place. Coding academies have been developed. It's also important to develop your current workforce into that segment, right? You can't leave the staff you have where they are and get only new people in. Right? So that is where Volkswagen is heavily investing. And at MOIA, actually, we are transitioning the profiles. We are upskilling the existing profiles, like technicians, service people, and so on, into the AV service profiles. For example, we are developing drivers to safety drivers, and then later on to remote operators, and that requires programs and also understanding of requirements and a skill set where we need to develop our staff too.
Thank you. I think it would be remiss not to, I don't know if it's an elephant in the room, but whenever I tell people what it is that I do, I usually get two questions. And one is, where can I try an AV? And then won't AVs take people's jobs? I feel like those are usually the common questions that I get. We often hear that, automation may displace some roles, but then create new ones. I'm curious to ask a few of you, how do you see this balance evolving, and what does reskilling actually mean in your different contexts? I don't know if you'd like to start, Sabrina.
Yeah, I would like to jump in actually, because we looked into that, and the technological innovation is no surprise actually. So we've developed from train to car to and every time there were concerns and people thought this would take away jobs, but also every time this has increased the infrastructure and optimized the whole job landscape. So we are often confronted also with that concern, and we every time try to take it away and say it's not going to happen overnight. Yeah, that is one topic. And then there's also the lack of drivers and lack of people who want to go into these traditional roles. So this is also filling a gap. And we are pretty sure that the AV industry will lead to a higher amount of jobs than we have today.
Thank you. Jacqueline, I don't know if you wanted to add anything there.
Maybe one point. We're always talking in CCAM about automated vehicles, but I think few to less about traffic management. Because when we have AVs on the roads, I mean, that also means that the traffic management, which is organized by authorities, also need to include, or the vehicles need to be included in this point. So from our point of view, the skilling shift really needs to consider more and more a kind of understanding of the technologies coming and how to include it in our systems, always taking into account the cost efficiency and the scalability. Because we see, and when we look at Moya, we see opportunities for many different regions, but not everywhere, because the different circumstances of infrastructure may lead to a diverse environment and landscape of the introduction of AVs. And on the other hand, what we see more and more, I mean, we might have shifts in these new roles, but we will have these tail operations. We need to talk about responsibilities, and we need also to talk about, from my point of view, more about data literacy and digital competencies. Because data literacy, I mean, everybody is talking about data and how to exchange, and the AV industry needs a lot of data and how to provide it, but nobody is really skilling up for this huge and difficult, I think, challenge we all have, that we really talk in the same language. Because when I ask for data, and we are responsible in the eastern region of Austria for turning data into smart mobility, I mean, we understand more and more data and in which quality we need to deliver it, or which digital and physical infrastructure the AVs will need. But I think that is still a blind spot, which we need a little bit more to emphasize on, to really make it happen, that this transition is working fine and smoothly. And maybe to put one point, which I think should be discussed also in all the CCAM discussions, how we can break down the silos. We need to combine the forces and really be open for transition, even if that means that we have to talk about shifting responsibilities in the future.
I also really like that answer because, yeah, I'm a big fan of collaboration. I think nothing happens in isolation, so I really like that point. And Nana and Madalena, anything to add?
I just want to complement what Sabrina said, because I think it really draws on the fact that we are scared for maybe not something such a big importance. And I'll just give okay, because I'm an economist, I'll have to give some numbers. But just to say that basically logistic and land mobility services they account for 80% of the jobs in the transport and storage sector overall. But at EU level, logistics are like 1.5% of total employment, and land transport around 3% of total employment. And these percentages are, at least from the forecast that we do in Cambridge Econometrics, are not going to change by 2050. So these are small numbers compared to the doom scenarios that everybody is talking about. And then what we also know, and is being there published already by the European Labour Authority in their latest EURES report, is that we have huge labor shortages in transport sector. So heavy truck and lorry drivers are in shortages in 21 countries in the European Union. Bus and tram drivers in 18 countries. Motor vehicles and mechanical repairs are in shortage in 17 countries. So we already are not delivering the full potential of our transport services because we lack these people. So I don't think that the EVs, what they will come at the beginning is to complement the existing workforce and to give us the level of transport that we need as an economy. And transport is transport and storage is one of these sectors which appears in the supply chain of everything. If you need food, you need to transport it. You have to store it somewhere and you have to transport it. You even for health, right? You need to get to the doctor. So it's an essential part of all the supply chains in the economy. So having higher output of this transport sector and at lower prices would benefit our economies and would actually increase employment in other sectors. And then coming back to what Jacqueline said, okay, traffic controllers at the moment are very, probably they're, you can't even quantify how many they are at the European level, but they will become important. And so they are where we have parts of these needs that we need to fill in with people. So there is a possibility to shift. And I forgot who said it, Nana or Sabrina said that that it will take time, so it won't happen overnight. So we have time to shift these people if we know that we're coming, if we know that what we kind of needs we're filling, which labor shortages we're filling. So I really think it's not a doomsday scenario, and we can really shift people. And also, let's not forget that most of the people working in transport and storage sector are older workers who would in the next 10 to 15 years will retire. So and we have an aging workforce throughout Europe. So literally, there's only benefits from coming to support this existing sector. We don't have to drive anybody out. We just need to kind of ensure that we still get sufficient quantity of, let's put it this way, quantity of transport and storage. Thanks.
Thank you, Madalena. And Nana, I don't know if you want to add anything after.
No, I just want to, say that I completely agree. And I think, Madalena, you had all the points on why it makes sense. I mean, it completely makes sense from our perspective as well, from Holo side. Yeah.
Thank you. Of course, building the future of mobility isn't just about the technology, as we've said. It's also about kind of who gets to participate in this, which is, I feel like, a very important part of this conversation. I think historically, transport and technology sectors have maybe struggled with gender imbalance, and I think AVs offer an opportunity to change that narrative, so to speak. So if I turn to you, Jacqueline, what barriers do you feel still exist for women who are entering or advancing in AV related roles, whether that is, I don't know, AI, robotics, systems engineering, take your pick.
Well, first I want to say, I think a lot of progress is being made since AVs and emerging technologies are now fancy and experienced to be really attract also female employees. I think that's a big chance for us in having a balanced and equal view on developments and also on solutions. But I think what still is a point which we need to focus on is the representation and visibility of more women in this sector. It's still a male-dominated environment. That's nothing bad. But however, I think we need to really present a valuable opportunity right now for both genders to enter this field of expertise. And I think when we look into basic IT dominated departments, they still look quite male. But when I give you this example of our department, we have more than 40% women working with us. And that's, from my perspective, a quite balanced department, and we see more and more robotic engineers coming, a lot of data scientists joining us, which gives us an opportunity to bring up more women in this field. But I think what still is there when we talk about barriers of maybe having more women in this field, which I would wish to have, is we have still persistent biases and stereotypes when it's in order to who gets the technical leadership. I think the prejudices get less and less around whether women can take a key role in a specific field and development, and a special position in engineering automation. There's really a clear evidence that it gets really, I think, better, and I see positive developments, which I need to say. But I think we need structural changes, and that's structural changes in education. And not starting at university, from my perspective, starting in a kindergarten, and do not still continue. And that's what I experienced from my personal view. We still teach what is a male job, what is a female job, and which sector you should go in. And if I look into the public transport, we see a strong community of female role models, and I think that it's important to encourage both sides in really a diverse landscape of people working together and changing the mobility system, which will come maybe in 10, maybe in 20 years, but to start right now and being equally responsible for our future.
Thank you. And Nana, I guess, again, from this kind of operator perspective, why is it important to integrate this balance and inclusion from the very beginning? Yeah, curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know that there is gender bias potentially in many facets of production. So of course it matters in terms of vehicle design, it matters in terms of testing the system, it matters in terms of what kind of data do you feed the system. It matters when you design a service. Men and women are different in their travel patterns, in their perception of safety. All of these things matters, and we just know that having more, a better balance in men and women participating in development of these systems, you would have, less bias towards these developments. So it absolutely makes sense, and it's really important that we consider it early on.
I really like that. I remember the first time I ever found out that the crash, when you crash into something and the bag was tested on a man. I remember the first time that I learned that, and it flipped my brain completely. So yeah, I really like that response. And to Sabrina, are there any learnings, I think, that you can share on perhaps how Volkswagen has worked to build a more inclusive, future-ready team in this kind of autonomous automotive technology? Yeah.
Yeah, Volkswagen is putting a lot of effort into the topic of diversity and really also holds everyone accountable on that. I think one is to offer dedicated programs and to give them also freedom in terms of maternity leaves and certain just HR tools to enable participation. Secondly, I think you really need to measure and also to make it a relevant part of compensation for managers to make sure that you include that you set up your teams diverse. So that is very important, and that is being done at Volkswagen. I'm very proud of that because that is really helpful. So there are certain mentoring programs for young women, there are academies, so there are many tools available. Yeah, but and still, if I just consider our business at Moja, it is also very important to have very diverse teams. Yeah, so when we design safety requirements, I wouldn't think we get to the best outcome if we only ask men about what is required into how do I call for emergency? Do I want to leave the vehicle at night at a strange place, or would I maybe recommend to keep the door shut? Yeah, so So that is very important. And this is why at Moya, inclusivity is a very, very major part of the hiring process already, and then also during the whole daily work life.
Thank you. Madalena, I'm going to turn to you again with your economist hat, I guess. Nana shared the reasons for why it's important to integrate this balance from the beginning. I guess from the wider view, what kind of risks could there be if this gender inclusion isn't embedded quite early on in the workforce? And what could that mean maybe for innovation or productivity in the long term?
I think before we talk about innovation and productivity in the long term, I think if we don't start including a bit more women, we're not going to have workforce. So right now, the labor supply can only increase if we start including more women in the labor force. So this the only way we can expand in Europe is by attracting more women on the labor force. Then once this is achieved, of course, the economic environment is changing. So you need digital skills all over the economy, not only in the automotive industry or in transport or in logistics. So you need everywhere this digital skills. So the women we are attracting in the labor force, we need to ensure that they also have the skills. And there is now the European Union of Skills target to have gender balance in STEM education. So that would ensure that at least the women who enter, young women who enter the labor market would also be encouraged to go towards STEM education and then benefit from all the transition, because it's not only for AVs that you need STEM education. You need STEM education also for EVs and healthcare and other parts of the economy. But I think I kind of liked what Nana was mentioning about the safety and how you can think about this kind of roles, because indeed if you're not testing on all the users, you're not going to understand what are the user requirements. The user requirements are going to ensure that when we go towards passenger vehicles, the adoption happens. Because, okay, you can pass all the tests as producers, but then if the people don't want to buy the car because they don't feel safe enough, and I as a woman driver, I can also tell you that I also pay a lot of attention when buying a car, pay attention as, is this car safe enough for me? If I don't understand it, if I don't feel safe, I'm not going to buy it. So from a consumer perspective, you also need to ensure that you cater towards women as users or buyers of the technology. The same is with the public transport. If the people don't feel safe, they're not going to enter. And there are lots of women who need this, who need the service. But in general, coming back to the labor market perspective, apart from what we need to develop this technology, when we're going to go towards adoption of this technology, right now, the transport and storage sector is predominantly male because the working condition in the sector are such that women don't want to work there. It's not that they cannot, they're not able, it's that they don't want to. Because, for example, if we talk about truck drivers, that means that they have to be away from home for several days. Wages, working conditions related also to where they need to sleep overnight and things like that. So I think, and I think this is what Nana and Sabrina was giving example from the producer perspective. I think this will change when the transport and storage sector adopts this kind of technology. Then they will allow women who from a safety environment they can run these cars. They could also help to increase the labor that goes to this sector. by saying, okay, now it's safe for me to get a job in the transport and storage sector, or it's more pleasant. I can work in an environment which is heated. I have breaks and so on. So it really makes it, from this point of view, as also as women don't want to work in this environment, not because necessarily they're biased, is because they don't like the working conditions. So yeah.
Thank you. I think it's a necessary reminder, if you like, that inclusion is, yes, fair, but it's also perhaps an economic imperative, if you like. So yeah, thank you very much, Madalena. So we've kind of talked about what is happening currently, kind of the who is impacted by this, and now I'd like to turn to, I guess, how we get there. We've kind of alluded to collaboration, and I think preparing the future of the AV workforce will require people working together, whether that is government, industries, educators, researchers. It's going to require a lot of different parties to sit at the table and kind of have these discussions. I guess, Jacqueline, what strategies, I guess, or best practices have you seen that have succeeded in making STEM or transport sectors more inclusive through these collaborative measures? And how can this be scaled or transferred to the AV industry?
First of all, I wanted to just respond to Madalena, because I think she already mentioned something which is important, that we need to put this female perspective into the middle of our businesses, and how we want to get more female workers into our industries. On the one hand, I learned even from my team that it is for indoor routing, which is not a CCAM topic, I know, but indoor routing is right now in Austria possible. And we're taking care even of escalators and talking about incident managements of escalators, because we see that we need to not only female but also male responsibles to move with the children in a proper way through the city and in a safe way, so they can really trust that this transport offer is really suitable to their needs. And how was that possible? Only through diverse teams. And I think, which is a best practice, is I think we need to design inclusive entry points for different kind of expertises and experts. I mean, you do not only need an IT expert. If there are only 10% or 20 or 30, I don't know the numbers for Europe. I think that Madalena would be a better person to know that. But I think then we cannot attract more than this percentage of this specific education path. But however, I think, and that's the best practice, get more and more specialists of different fields into your company and your field to really open it up for more development. And I think I agree with Sabrina, what Volkswagen is doing, and I think we are also doing it, is to promote these diverse life models. We need to assist in making it possible that also women stay in the business and have this opportunity to respect maybe also different needs in their personal lives, and keep them maybe with more home office, so in different roles in the company and in the working life, to make really this inclusive leadership structures which we need. And I think I still want to still stress it, and I am myself a STEM how to say motivated woman, where somebody came just to me and told me, well, we need to encourage you and give you this, you're a curious girl, you should have more confidence in going a STEM educational path. And I think to really address the self-doubt, the social conditioning, that maybe you're not right in this field of expertise, and then to get convinced that that an engineering studies is the right one you should enter. And I think those kind of programs really can motivate in this early childhood, or motivate more female to also then go into the different educational expertises which we need. So there are several best practices, but I think to also to give room and put this whole role models to the stage. I mean, here we are quite a big amount of female experts. That makes maybe also a quite good support of younger women to also join.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. And I like that educational element, because I think sometimes you realize almost too late that you've been socially conditioned to believe one thing rather than the other. So thank you. And I guess, Madalena, what role should educate the education system and policy, what role should they play in kind of better anticipating the future of skills and preparing for that in the future, in your opinion?
What they are already doing, but they are asking for projects like CCAM-ERAS, so where we are looking into anticipating the skills of CCAM. So this they are doing. There are other projects out there like the Set of Skills Forecast or the Employment Observatory, I think that DG Employment wants to perform. So they are gathering this kind of data. And this is all the starting point, gathering the data from producers and from people like Jacqueline, who are the policymakers, but also Nana and Sabrina, who are from the producer part. So gathering this information is important. Then the next is, okay, take this information, analyze it, and take it a step forward and transform it into policy actions. And I think one of the policy actions that I find challenging from looking at the skills anticipation into the future, I need to understand, okay, what is going to be the adoption that is going to be allowed for different type of AV technology. For me to be able to tell you what are the skills you're going to need, I need to understand, okay, what kind of technology is out there and what is going to be allowed and when. And then I can tell you, this is the kind of technology you want to adopt by 2030, then you need this many people in this kind of skills that you can do. And this is what we're going to present in our workshop on the 19th of November of the CCAM-ERAS project. This is going to say is if you have this adoption level, this is what how many people you need in these roles. But then it's also for the producer is this, they need to provide this greater transparency on them to be able to produce to the safety measures they are imposing. And you have to give them kind of some time for the producer to adapt to adapt to the rules. And then comes the education and training providers. They see the regulation. They see that the regulation is telling them the producer start producing. They tell the local authorities that Jacqueline is representing adopt. So they know that, okay, if they look at our numbers, they say, okay, this is how much adoption there will be. This is how much is produced. These are the skills that we need to train the new workforce. So then they can offer this kind of trainings, because also I think I forgot who said it, that you also need trainers of trainers. So it was, I think, related to the safety, I forgot, safety operational people that you first have to train the trainers and then you provide this one. So in order for this to happen, this takes time as well. So education and training changes doesn't happen overnight. But if the policymakers give this let's say this targets or this incentive or this forward-looking saying, we are giving the legislative framework for this to happen, then the preparation will follow. Because I think all of us now are prepared to look at saying what are the impacts of certain policies, and we start the preparation. I don't think there's any university out there who still wants to who say no, I'm not going to produce any STEM students for the new technology or for the future. Everybody is going to be trying to be ahead of the game to attract also students to their courses. So I think this is kind of where there's the interplay of this skills anticipation with what the policymakers need to do.
I don't know if anyone wanted to respond to Madalena's comment.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting, and just from our perspective at Holo, we also really encourage policymakers to lean into these real world deployments of operations, because we see, for instance, in Norway, that regulators are and also just authorities in general are heavily involved in our pilot project, where we are still in pilot, not having a cemented legislation yet in Norway, but it makes for a more flexible solution. And before we have an industry that's fully settled, then policymakers can still learn and make something that actually makes sense afterwards. So as we're still in this in-between phase and just about to be there, I think it's super important that policymakers are very close to what's happening and not keep an arm's length, but stay relevant to what's going on. How do we regulate this kind of technology? Do we need some sort of certification for safety? Do we need that in terms of training as well? Do we need, I don't know, different kind of certification systems or whatever should be in place? Policymakers really need to be heavily involved in setting that system up.
Thank you very much. We're nearing the end of time, so I'll ask one more question in case anyone wants to submit a question via Q&A. If we were to imagine, the AV workforce in 2035, I know Madalena said 2050 at one point, but I'm just going to ignore that for a second. What would success in inclusivity and preparedness look like? And can I start with you, Sabrina?
Yeah, I will answer in a bit, but let me just make one more point to the earlier discussion. Yeah, because I would like to add that I think it's very, very crucial to have a shared vision and a joint ambition. So you need to bring everyone behind the same target, also regulators, but also teams. And this topic is so interesting. So I think for inclusion also of women maybe into new roles, this AI topic is so catchy. And if we now consider that autonomous driving is like a physical AI, and this will lead us to even more innovative topics in future. So that is only the first step. I think this is important, combined with this joint vision of a safer mobility that is more inclusive and so on and so on. So I would like to keep that in mind. And I think it's also very interesting that in the whole industry, you have to sort of work closer together. This was also mentioned earlier. So you have to, all have to do it together, right? You can't really push from only one end, which is also very, very interesting. And with that, I think in future, we will build on these skills. I think we will strengthen, and at the minute it becomes public and livable, also experienceable, I think there will be a total explosion. Yeah, and then people will get into it very, very quickly. So we're climbing up that hill, but once we get there, I think this will be very convincing.
Thank you. I like the thought of this explosive change in our ecosystem. That's very exciting. Okay, so I don't see any questions, so I'll just ask a last one in one single sentence, if you can. What is the one or single most important action that we can take today, actually, to ensure that AV or the future of the AV workforce of tomorrow or whatever is both skilled and inclusive in one single sentence, if you can? And I'll start with Jacqueline.
I mean, my wish would be to have a kind of KPI for future projects, that we have inclusion measured in all the projects which we touch, and also to create, totally with Sabrina, this cross-sectoral approaches. I think that's the key of success, that we are working in an integrated system and having this agile and forward-thinking common view in addressing the right topics at the right time, and be prepared. And that only works inclusive and integrated over the different disciplines.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Madalena?
I'll talk from the point of view of the young people because we talked about the young women, but we didn't talk about the young people. I think that the autonomous mobility will bring inclusiveness in the sense that more young people, are women or male, they will go towards this sector because they will be attracted by this technology. And I don't know if you have seen around Brussels this. Banners who are attracting public sector new employees, and they are saying, "Are you interested in technology? Come work for us, or come see the working fairs, whatever." But it is something. So technology is catching the young people, and I think this would also help us to ensure that we get more young people in employment, because we have a problem as well, not only from gender perspective, but we have high youth unemployment in Europe. So if we can attract them through the technology lenses, maybe we solve two problems in one go.
As both a young person and a woman, I very much appreciate your answer, Madalena. So thank you, thank you very much. Sabrina, please.
In one sentence, I would say, as the pace of tech innovation is so rapid, I think it's very important to constantly skill and upskill and train and just keep the pace to be able to participate.
Thank you. And Nana.
Yeah, I think I would say that, the technology is actually already here, and what's important is that we still have a lot to do in terms of regulation and in terms of designing services that work inclusively across genders. And I think that's something you can go out and start today if you are a PTO or regulator or wherever you work.
Thank you very much. So we are nearing the end, as I've said, and I'd like to really thank our panelists for their words, their insights, and to the audience also for joining. I think today's discussion highlighted that the shift towards autonomous mobility is both technological, yes, but also very, very human. I think a few key takeaways for me: change doesn't happen overnight. I think Sabrina said that very early on in the virtual panel. The evolution or the revolution of AVs is already reshaping the skills landscape, requiring both the kind of technical expertise, but also interdisciplinary thinking, I think is very key and something that you all kind of pulled on throughout the discussion. Inclusion is not a side issue, it's very central to innovation and resilience, I think, for the economy, and collaboration across industry, education, policy, whoever is somewhat impacted will be critical to really building a robust workforce that we need for the future of AVs. This conversation is part of our PAVE Europe ongoing efforts to ensure that the road ahead is open to basically everybody. So if you did enjoy this conversation, it will be available online in a couple of days. And you can also join us in Brussels in November, whether it is for the CCAM-ERAS workshop or it is for the PAVE Europe conference, to have more chats like this. On behalf of PAVE Europe, I would like to say thank you again to Sabrina, to Nana, to Madalena, to Jacqueline for your time and your insights and the time and the conversation, because I really did enjoy it. So we look forward to continuing the conversation in other places. But thank you very much to all who joined, and I wish you all a very good day. Thank you very much.